Have you ever thought that the most valuable work you do every day is the work nobody even notices? Let me explain. Today, I want to talk about a recent discovery I made while developing an ongoing art piece of mine. I like to call this discovery the invisible work, highlighting the chores without which nothing would get done, even though they're hardly ever noticed. These are actions that often happen silently and often go unrecognized. They happen every day. They hold families, relationships, and entire families together. Let me take you back to Hungary. In the 1970s, there was a systematic and comprehensive design research project during that decade in which they photographed every single stage of a dishwashing session. These images were used to plan the size and then used to design the kitchen sink. Think about that. Everyday movement shaping not just the physical form, but the social and spatial system. An artist named Esther Agnes Sabo responded to this story in her own way. She recreated and embodied artwork by tracing the outlines of this dishwashing process. It became a monument to the invisible artwork, serving as a tribute to the movement that once shaped our homes and continues to shape how we live today. Many things designed in that program are still a common part of Hungarian lives, including the flat layouts, the kitchens in them, the plates in those kitchens, and the motions of washing those plates. On this side, you can see her finished artwork, and at the bottom, you can see the process of making the artwork. I invited Esther to the Motion Lab and recorded her to showcase her artwork. So the very act of making the monument becomes part of our archive of invisible work. Using the Motion Laboratory gave me a great opportunity to create my own version of these motion records. We used 3D camera technology and custom-made software to capture these movements. We then generated virtual sculptures from these motions, which have been printed onto sheets of glass. And here, you can see the traces of her movements. The colors indicate the passage of time, for example, red fading into blue. This may look like an abstract drawing, but I see them as something concrete. They are the living imprints of bodies in motion. But where did this idea come from? One of the inspirations was The Battle of Cassina by Michelangelo. When I first saw it, I didn't just see figures, I saw choreography. I saw movement. I was so fascinated by this. I recreated it in photography. I moved through the images using long exposure, pausing at each phase and flashing the light to mark the rhythm. I even attached light bulbs to my body and followed the path of my motion. I wanted to understand, how can a human body carry space and time? How does it draw with motion? The same question brought me here to the Motion Laboratory, where I spent a full year as an artist in residence, and I invited 13 participants. Each person did something they usually do, like cooking, cleaning, nursing, and so on. And we recorded their movement in 4 different ways: photography, video, 3D point cloud, and the motion capture system with 16 cameras. During one recording, Aniko Illich, a research psychologist and university lecturer, was cooking tuna fish noodles. And why specifically tuna fish noodles? Because it's a familiar meal for her, a quick home-cooked dinner, but also because it represents something deeper: care. The act of preparing dinner after a long day is a moment of invisible work, the kind of work we expect, the work that holds the household together. These repetitive gestures are full of meaning, full of value, even if they're often overlooked. The most touching recording was of a mother and her child. The baby started to cry, and the mother began breastfeeding him, and naturally started walking around the laboratory, gently rocking him. And later, when I printed these moments onto roll film, I realized something interesting. We had a similar motion capture from a creator who was pacing while talking on the phone. 2 entirely different contexts, but the same choreography and the same focus and care. Next, I recorded an actor and dancer, Ben Semezai. He told me that he loves mopping and hanging the laundry. That's what he wanted to capture. His pride in this task felt powerful because it's often still seen as women's work. It reminded me that invisible work is not a gendered issue, it's a human one. Ben's motion becomes a swirl of gesture, transformed into sculpture, into prints, into a quiet celebration of attention and grace. An older participant was Victor Seri, a dancer, a choreographer, a media designer. When I told him about my story, he said, "I have a nice choreography for cleaning Airbnb shower cabins," and he performed it for us in the laboratory. The movement became a layered abstract print, a vortex of lines that mapped the invisible architecture of the body in motion, doing tasks that no one ever thinks to honor. This 3D printed sculpture is a time-based data visualization of cleaning an Airbnb shower cabin. What unites all these stories is one thing: visibility, or more precisely, the lack of it. We live in a world that values what is loud, measurable, and monetizable. But invisible work, the kind done at home, the kind done for caring, the kind that never gets the spotlight, is the foundation of everything else. For me, art became a way to reframe these acts, to encourage the audience to look at them again. The plate you're watching, that's a gesture passed down through generations. That sweeping motion you're making, that's a line, a mark, a trace. This project lives at the intersection of art and science and is based on research, collaboration, and technology. But at its core, it's about empathy. It's about seeing the human being, about what we take for granted. So here's what I ask you to do. Tonight, when you go home, observe. Notice the way someone wipes the table, or how they fold the towel, how they vacuum the room while lost in thought. They're different choreographies. They are living archives. And if you can make these movements visible, then this project is not just an artistic experience, but it becomes a communal one. It opens up a new language for how we think about work, about our bodies, and about each other. When you go home tonight, pick a movement and observe it. If you still remember it tomorrow, you have made the invisible visible. Maybe the real masterpieces aren't hanging in museums, but are unfolding quietly between kitchen counters and laundry baskets. Thank you.